Alright, so I'm going to be recording my progress working on this website. I'm working on a website for a VATSIM organization, and I've had a lot of questions as to what I'm doing, and people have watched me and were curious about, you know, what exactly is behind the scenes whenever you're coding a website. So we're going to get into this. I'll warn you right now, it's probably going to be boring for a lot of you, but for those of you who are complete geeks like me, you might find it interesting. So all of my websites run on PyroCMS, which is a content management system built on CodeIgniter, which is a PHP framework. The site we're working on right now employs PyroCMS on CodeIgniter for the back-end server-side scripting. The front end is ran on Twitter's Bootstrap, which handles most of which is, if you don't know, it's a CSS framework. And so we'll get into this. I'll try to explain what I'm doing along the way. So right now I'm working on a couple functions here for authentication. First one's going to be verifying a user's email address. That's already taken care of. That's done. Verify check is whenever they actually do the check. They enter a code, the code matches, and they're now verified. So deverify is really only going to be used during the registration process whenever somebody registers and we require them to verify their email address. By default, when a user registers, they're going to be verified. So if we require email verification, then this function here will run. So it takes an ID parameter, which is an integer, takes it through the model, and we're going to look at the model right now, make sure everything works. Okay, so here's the model. Models interact with the database. So in this case, we are de-verifying the account. And we're basically updating these fields on the table. Table is located right here. And that looks like it's going to work. So let's go back to the library. Okay, if we have an error, I need to spit out a language line that we couldn't de-verify. So let's take a look at that. Pull up our language file, and that key doesn't exist, so I have to create it. So whenever something happened and we cannot de-verify an account, we have to spit out an error. So let's go ahead and do that. Errors, verification. So right now we're adding a language line to the language file. Okay. Oh, got to grab that key, plop it in there. So that's done. Next thing is going to be activate, which is for our use, it's going to be when an administrator approves an account. So I copied some of this code off of an earlier, older version. So there's a lot of updating that I have to do because a lot of these files don't exist anymore. I'm also going to be drinking while doing this, so bear with me. Okay, so now we're calling for the activate method off of the user model class. We're going to take a look at that. If I have it, and I do not, So we're going to have to make it. I'm going to pull up the old model just to see if it's in here. It's not. So here's an earlier method, an earlier version of it. I'm going to have to copy and paste and work on. Verify, deactivate. Let's put it right in here. I'd imagine it's going to be a lot like verify, which is where we're only updating a couple fields in the table. So let's go ahead and copy that over. Activate. We're not going to be worried too much about a code. The verify method is what handles the, I guess I should explain, the PyroCMS content management system that all my sites are built on do not have a lot of functionality. I've extended them greatly by hacking the system, creating my own functions. So this activate function, it used to be that the user would verify their email account by activating. I didn't like that because what if we want an administrator to be approving accounts? So what I did was I moved the kind of moved the terms around a little bit. So instead of activating, I now call that verifying, or verifying your email account. Activation is strictly the process that entails the administrator approving an account. Anyhow, a little break in the video there, but make a long story short, I switched around the functions. Activate is actually now a feature where the admin can approve an account, whereas verify is a feature where they verify their email. So this used to be activate. PyroCMS's version of activate was to verify your email. And I'm switching that around, so if you see me, that's what I'm doing right now. Okay, so that's done. Let's go back to the library. Got to make a language line for that when the admin activates an account or approves an account. Oh, that's errors. I don't want an error. Let's go to success. So this is going to be an admin doing this, obviously, because he's approving an account. So we'll gear the language toward an administrator. So we'll say User's account is now active. Sounds good to me. Oh, gotta copy that key. Okay, so we've got the keys brought over for the log. Everything in this module that happens to a user, I have it being logged. So each user would have their own log in this table right here, which is empty at the moment. So we do a trigger, make sure it's documented there, which it is. Okay, so this is outdated. I need to replace that. Basically, this is pulling a setting for registration type, which we need to add up here. I like to document and separate everything. So now, instead of calling for this settings array, we're going to call for the function called, actually the setting up there, registration type. So if registration is equal to approval, meaning that we have to approve everything, then well, actually, let's see here. I don't think that really matters. No, because we're not going to be activating anybody if, well, we might be. Okay, yeah, I understand. So this would be initial registration. This would be if, say, I don't know, we suspended somebody and or reactivating them. So we will make it a different language line. That is a success. Yes, it is. Okay. Oh, you know what? That's actually a log item. My bad. So we got to go and activation. Got activated. Okay, let's try that again. Success. The user's account is now active. Actually, yeah, we're not gonna worry about it. We're just gonna return. And there we go. So that's if we have success. We can get rid of that setting because we don't need it. So if we successfully activated the account, we pull this information here, we log it, we trigger a global trigger, and then we will return a message. Activate, we already validated that that works. Let's look at auth-m. Did we? Yeah. See, there it is. So that works. Pull that there and make sure that they have, yep. Good. And then this is an error handler, just in case something happened. It's a level 1 error. This is a custom function that I created to handle error, display errors, any errors that happen, and also log them in a database table for the webmaster's review. So users auth, okay. We're not going to display an error, or we're not going to, oh actually, yeah we will. Everything you do, whether it's a success, a phrase to indicate a success or a failure. It's all going to be based on a language file. I mean, you could do it, you could just say, you know, the user's account failed to activate. I mean, you could do that, but the problem with that is that, you know, you're assuming that everybody speaks English. So if they don't, you have somebody else on your site that for some reason speaks Japanese. They wouldn't understand what that is. So you use language files, maybe, anytime. There we go. Nope. I did notice that this program, I mean, I really like the IDE, but it is a resource hog, and eventually you have to restart it. Okay, so public error was that the account was not activated. So let's create that. Success, errors, activation. This is all stored in a language variable, which is loaded with PyroCMS. So we want to say it's from the auth library. It's an error for the user. Activation process. And that it failed. Please notify the webmaster. Because that would obviously be something that it's not an error that was created by our users. It's not our user's fault. It's something in the coding. So now this, it doesn't matter what language. It doesn't matter. It's going to be English because all of most of my clients, I would say it's a long shot to say I'm going to have any foreign speaking clients. Okay. So that is done. The activate feature is done. Where am I at now? We did that, de-verifying the account, activating the account, meaning that the administrator approved it. I guess we can leave this deactivate. Yeah, let's go ahead and do that. Got to switch the old to the new. Deactivate. And I don't think we have it in our user model. No, we don't. So we're going to have to create that. Oh yeah, it is. Look at that. Something's not working. Hold on, let me try restarting this. Seems like the project index isn't loading. So let's try it now. Oops. Oh, wrong project. There we go. Hey, look at that. Shows up. Good. Let's deactivate. If the ID is empty, we want to return false. If we're going to do that, we need to get rid of the value there. Activation code. It's verification code. See, we don't want that. Okay, and then we update that. Good. So that's good. So you know, there's no language for a success here, so I'm wondering if deactivate's actually needed. I know it was a carryover from the old system where, like I said, they used that to verify your email. If you were deactivated, you would have to re-verify your email, but I didn't like the wording. So I'm wondering now if this is even needed. would we have any situation where we would deactivate somebody? I don't think so, because that's what suspend is for. So you know what? We're going to get rid of that. No, we're not. We're going to leave it there. And we just won't have any language associated with it. In fact, I'm going to note right here that this is probably no longer needed. I swear, if anybody ever opens up my code, they're going to... okay. Now we're going to go into the user suspension. Okay, so now we need to find out what exact... let me see something. Yeah, okay. So, what all fields are included in the suspension? Let's find out. Okay, so we have suspended, which was, it's a one character integer, which is basically a flag. 0 means you're not suspended, 1 means you are suspended. Suspended expiration is a date time. When the suspension expires, the reason, an explanation, and who you were suspended by. So let's look at that now. New field name is actually suspended expiration, not suspended. Actually, you know what? I gotta rewrite a lot of this here. I don't want to call it post anymore. I want to call it data. And as far as that's concerned, we can just do something that oh, you know what? No, that ain't gonna work. Ah, jeez. Okay. Table equals table suspended. You know, I don't know why we're having this done in the library. This actually needs to be done. That's all right. And you don't have to define your variables before you use them in PHP. I think that ended in like PHP 3.5 or something like that. I still do just because I don't like the error I get. Look what happens when I everything's underlined red because it's freaking out because it's an undefined variable. So let's make it defined. Table is going to be an array. Table suspended is going to equal 1. And then we start getting into our logic. So we're looking for a couple keys here in data. It's going to be suspended expiration. Oh, look at that. I'm looking for the old post again. Let's go ahead and change all those. There we go. So if we specified an expiration date on the suspension, we need to convert it to a datetime object. And we need to we're going to need to create that property. Suspension expire friendly. So let's go do that. We're going to make it public. Those are probably going to be used for, this friendly version is going to be used in an email more than likely, or some sort of log. Suspension expire is going to go to the table, and we go back down. I want to make sure that's correct. Yes. Okay. Oh, we need a new setting. Actually, we know it's going to be suspend, so let's just do date format equals this get setting. We want to get the suspend email format. Just for warm cozy, let's make sure that that's defined. Hey, look at that, it is. Okay. Get rid of the outdated stuff, put in the new. Make sure that that's going to be the suspend reason. Looks like it is. Okay. Just some more updating there. Explain. Suspended by, I think that's renamed. Yes, it is. It's actually suspended by, not suspend by. Suspended by the current user, which would be an admin, hopefully. Something's wrong if not. Here's our old model here. We have to update that. Update. Let's make sure we're using the right stuff. Update. Key. Data. Okay, good. And we want to skip validation. Yeah. Definitely want to skip validation. That's going to throw a bunch of validation errors. Okay, trigger the suspension, which let's make sure that's, yep. Okay, here's our message, our success message. Looks like we're filling it in with a date. So let's do that. Actually, we have two different suspend options. One's going to give you an expiration date, the other's not. If we don't specify an expiration date, then it's indefinite. So we need two different messages. How are we going to do this? Just do the same thing. No, it's going to exist. We don't want that either. Ah. Okay. I just thought of something. The field is going to be present in the form regardless. So even if we don't fill it out, even if we specify no expiration date with the intent of having the user suspended indefinitely, I guess I'm getting tired, it's still going to come as empty. So we need to make sure that it's not empty. And we also are going to put that down here. Okay. So if it's the expiration is not empty, it means that we will have it expire. So let's go ahead and put that in there. So suspension until user's account is suspended until then. For those of you that don't know, this is the regex for it's a placeholder for a string which we're going to fill in, which would eventually be the date. So it would say the user's account is suspended until December 12th. And we need to make another message that says indefinitely. User's account is suspended indefinitely. Okay. Oh, you know what? It's got to be a sprintf because we're filling it in. This last parameter here, this boolean, I'm sending true. It's because I have this function here, set messages. This third parameter, so if you count, first parameter is the type of message, success or error. Second parameter is going to be the actual message itself, a language file. I'm sorry, a language line. Third parameter is boolean, true or false. If we set that to true, this whole thing right here would return false. I'm sorry, true because it's success, false if it's an error. So basically we are setting our error message, our success message, and then we're returning true. All in one line. It's pretty much the equivalent of this, but instead of 2 lines, it's 1. That'd be something else I optimized. Which means I can get rid of those brackets. Now if that doesn't match, then this means that we do not have an expiration date. Deep trouble. and that would be this one. Okay, so if we were successful in suspending the person, set our language, return true. Otherwise, if we have an error, where is that being set? Interesting. Yeah, I don't need that. So what we're going to do is we're just going to return same thing we do here. Except we're not. We will make an error. Let's see here. Errors, suspension, no. Let's see. The system failed to suspend the user's account. Please notify the webmaster. Because it wouldn't be a user error, it would be a site error. Which means we can get rid of all this. And that also means that this is done. Moving on. Let's see. We can clean this up by adding that parameter I told you. Oh, no, we can't. Yeah, we can. I just realized something. Ah, jeez. The set errors method of this class or library only has two parameters: the error itself and that Boolean flag I told you about. So this right here is incorrect. I don't need this. I'm thinking of the session, one of the session functions, which we'll get into later. Good thing I've seen that. Time for a sip. Okay, so it looks like we're calling an unsuspend method from the user model. We need to make sure that that exists. And if it does exist, we need to make sure that it is correct. So it does exist. Unsuspends a user. We have a couple triggers. Okay, so it looks like we're trying to find out if an admin was calling this, which I'm pretty sure. Oh yeah, I guess if it was a system unsuspending them after their expiration, it wouldn't be an admin. We are calling for the mode property from the auth library, so let's go make sure that that's set, which it's not. That's okay, because if we're saying that if it's not empty, then it equals whatever that equates to. Otherwise, it equals to defaults to false. Okay. Now I got to make sure these fields match. Suspended, suspended expiration, suspended expiration, suspended reason, suspended explain. Boy, it's going to get interesting as I get tired here. I'm sorry, suspend by. Okay, so we're setting everything to null, suspended to 0 when we unsuspend someone, which is not a word. That's why we have the typo error. Looks like this all looks pretty good. We have to create this language line. You know, it's kind of interesting that I'm calling for the language in the model. Normally we do that in the library. I don't remember my reasoning for that. Let's look at the library. See, we're setting a message right here. So why are we... Oh, triggers. I'm sorry. These are triggers. Okay. So what a trigger is it's a... if there's a lot of other modules installed on the website, sometimes those modules require some information that's shared across the entire system. So these triggers mean that, okay, something just happened. The user was unsuspended, and it triggers that. So if there's any events, it all focuses around the events file. If there's any modules looking for this trigger when it's activated or when it's triggered, then that function that is looking for it will execute some sort of code. So so that's what that is. All right. So that looks pretty good. We have to create this language line that let me just see something. Let's make this true. Oh, nope. We better keep it false, because we actually make it true here whenever we call the method. So let's return this language that we successfully unsuspended a user. The user's account is no longer suspended. See, I don't know where I'm getting this user's property here. I mean, apparently it exists right here. Oh, I know why. Okay. I see what's happening. So actually what I'm saying here is that if for some reason we don't, by this point, if we reach anything from here down, something happened. That's how I kind of, pretty much all of my code, I make it so that if you get to the very bottom, that's an error. Something went wrong by that point. So I'm saying that if we got here and we have an error, but yet we don't have any errors actually set in this library, that we actually will go ahead and set the error. This is a little bit outdated because now I have this other function here that I created that not only sets an error but logs it. So that's what we'll do. I also do need to create that language line though. So this would be the error that we get if something happened and the admin cannot unsuspend the guy. What would we call that? On the back end, it doesn't matter. Nobody sees this code, so I can call it whatever the heck I want to call it. On the front end, unsuspend is not a word. So the system failed to cancel the suspension. That sounds good. Okay, that's done. Slowly but surely getting there. This is by far the most in-depth library of the most in-depth module. It's part of the users module, which is actually a core module with the content management system that this is built on. But like I said, I don't like the way PyroCMS limits your options. And I see a lot more potential in this system. So I kind of developed it. I seriously hacked it. Which is a benefit to me because now I have a whole lot more functionality, but it's also it's actually a downside to it, is that whenever there's an update to the CMS, I can't apply that update. It would mess everything up. So you take the good with the bad. Okay, so moving on. So this next function, check temp, as you can see there, checks to see if the temporary user has passed their expiration. Basically, the way I have this set up, if there's three different settings, let's look at them. Three different settings for email verification. If I can find it. Okay, so here it is. Email verification, there's three different settings. There's disable, temporary, or require. Require means that they need to verify their email before they can have access to the website. Temporary, as the name implies, means that they can access the website so long as their temporary their verification hasn't expired. So we have it set to 24 hours. So if 24 hours pass since they created their account and they still haven't verified their email, then the account will be removed using this method right here, check temp. If there's no user passed, then we use the user property. So this is outdated, and it means we need a couple things here. Oh, I don't know why that happened. So we're pulling that setting, email verification. We need to make sure that that matches the index of settings up here. which it does. And then we replace that with that. So if we do have if we do have it set to temporary, if they have a verification generation date, which should match the field right here, and it does. All right, we create a new date time object and compare the two. So now equals a new date time object of now. Limit is date time create from format. This format, which is the date time format for MySQL. And I just noticed that that's actually a date format, which we need to change. Date time. I also have to update the master install since I'm kind of making a template for future use out of this website. So wrong one. So instead of a date, this is actually going to be a date time. I just want to make sure that that's correct. Let's see here. Yep, date time. All right. So basically what's happening here, I don't know if any of you are familiar with PHP's date time functionality, but we're creating a new timestamp right now, or a new date time object, I should say. And it's right now. So this very instant date time object should end up, so right now the time is 12:28 in the morning here. So it would come up with, a 12:28 a.m. date time object. So the limit would be the user's verification generation date plus that setting. This setting, we don't have it. I've got to create another one. This setting, verification expiration, which is 24 hours by default. Make sure that that exists up in the index, and it does not. Oh yeah, it does. Okay. So now that we have that setting, we just plug that in right here. So we're saying that we're going to create a new datetime object out of the user's verification generation date, and we're going to modify that and add whatever that setting was, which is 24 hours. So if right now is greater than the limit, it means they went past it, they've expired. So we remove the account. And we need to, that's returning an error. So we need to see why. Oh, that's why. It's actually called do delete. Changed it. So if this do delete user's ID Then we trigger this event trigger. And if for some reason, say when they first registered, we were under temporary email verification, but after they registered, we changed the settings to disable email verification. Well, then we need to re-verify them. So okay, for some reason we're returning false here, which is kind of unexpected. I'm sure there's a reason for it. I just forgot. So I'm going to bookmark this with my little red highlighter here and go back up to the method that calls this method, which was, oh, there wasn't one actually. Huh. That's interesting. So let's do a search for this method on the entire project and see what we come up with. Nothing. Yeah, that can't be right. Let's look at the old library that this one's being copied off of. Okay, there's one other place we can look, which is the controller. Controller is the file that actually triggers all of the library functions. It's also the file that directly interacts with the URL. So if you go to your website.com/users/read, this would be the method that is triggered. Controllers are responsible for loading your actual page views, your templates, collecting the data, stuff like that. And we're looking for login. Okay, now we got to go to that. We're looking for check. Let's do a search for check temp. No, it's not in there. Huh. It's kind of bizarre, I'm not going to lie. I find that a good part of my website work time is unfortunately spent debugging and tracing leads like a detective. It's kind of a pain, not going to lie. This right here is the function that controls all of the login methods. I created my own library called MWS. Handles errors and stuff like that. I didn't verify, I didn't document this very well. Okay, so I think it's going to be in this callback here, check login, which is not going to be this check login, it's going to be the check login of the controller that calls it. So let's go back to users, check login. Okay, so it actually calls the login method of the auth library. So let's go back to auth, the old one. Login Ah, here we go. Look at that. Found it. So when we go to log in, we're doing a lot of logic. First, we're going to make sure the password is correct. Then we're going to make sure the user is actually activated, meaning the administrators have approved their account. Then we got to check and see if they're verified. And if they're not verified, we need to see if they've passed their expiration. So the reason I didn't find this earlier is because I haven't copied over. I'm still copying everything from this file, the older one, the outdated one, to the new one right here. Alright, so we're going to validate this, make sure it's all working right. I took a little break here, so I gotta play catch up. Okay, so if it's temp mode and the user has a verification gen date, we need to compare the dates and see if it's expired. If now is greater than the limit, they went past the limit. Remove the account. So we call for the do delete method, which will actually delete them. And then we trigger this event, which needs to be documented right there, which it is. Good. And then, like I said, if it's if email verification is disabled, then we need to verify them. Oh yeah, I know what we were trying. We were trying to figure out why I'm returning false. Taking breaks sucks. Okay. In the old one, we realized that the login method checks for the temp. Okay. I see what happens. So, so apparently, this check temp, as you can see, it's not assigned to anything. We just call it for execution, which tells me that we don't really need to return anything. So I'm going to change the return to void. And we switch this to void. Actually, we don't switch to anything, we just return. Okay, so when we do this, when we delete them, this method here, do delete, if you remember in the old version, it was called it was called underscore delete. Now when we go to that, I bet you it sets. Yes, it does. So the old library had a property called deleted user, which you could probably find right there. So what happens was whenever it deleted somebody, it would actually set them up to the deleted user property so that whatever method called that would have access to that information. We're going to have to do that. So if we delete them, then we need this. If we delete them, and we need to create that because it doesn't exist. Make it public because we never know what's going to be asking it. Deleted user. All right. So now it's saying that if deleted user is empty, that we fill it in with this information. Well, that ain't going to work because it's trying to get the information from the database after it's been deleted. So that ain't going to work. Let's get rid of that and let's put it up here before we actually do the delete. There we go. It's a lot better. Okay. So now that that does that, and we know that it's going to be setting that property, we will be okay. So this is done. All of these are done. Oh, actually, that finishes up the activation and verification section of the authentication library, the auth library that I've created. So, seems like this might be a good stopping point. What do we have left? Okay, so looks like we want to do the login functionality. I think that's going to be pretty easy, so I'm going to go ahead and dive into it. I'll look at the old library here. And where did we put login? Right after profile management. Okay. So I'm just going to copy this entire section, log in and log out, copy it from the old library, and we're going to try to put it into the new one. Give it its own section called authentication. Why not? You know what? We already had one. Oh well. Okay, so login. First things first, we're going to have to create all these language files, or I'm sorry, language lines. Man, am I getting tired. It is like 1 o'clock in the morning here. When you watch my videos, you'll know that I'm getting tired because my voice starts getting really kind of cracked and I lose a little bit of the depth. Okay, so we're missing the password. If this gets triggered, it's because we're missing a password. So let's open up our language file. Oh, jeez. Password is required. You would think that this is all common sense, but now, if there's no identity and there's no password, then that means both items are missing. I switched this over to identity because we now have the ability to log in off of email or username, whichever you set in the settings. So, you know, as opposed to log in with your username, password, and remember whether or not you want the site to remember you. Now it's just identity. And if we didn't provide an identity and we didn't provide a password, it means we didn't provide anything, which means we got to create another. We're going to call it credentials missing. Let's shorten it up. Call it login information, because we don't know if it's an email or a username or any other field, because I also have that setting where another field in the profile can actually be used as your username. So we're just going to call it login information. Okay, so that's out of the way. Data. If we can't get a user based on the identity that they provided, we're going to switch that over to the new model. And then we have to make sure that this actually exists. It does not. Okay, we're going to have to copy it off of the old model and put it in the new one. Put it down here. Anytime we copy something off of an old file and put it to the new one, we have to check it out. So I just currently suspended my my operations on the other file, and now we got to work on this one. So get user by identity, we take in a string. If no ID was passed, then we use the if identity is null or if it's Boolean, identity equals this config item identity off of auth, which I believe is still set. Let's look. Yes, it is. Okay, good. And then ID equals this session get user. So we're going to try. So basically, if it wasn't provided, we're going to see if it's in the session, the user data. There's a spelling error there. I'm not going to touch a lot of this because this is pretty much default with, stock with PyroCMS. Why are we calling the identity field twice? That's unnecessary. Oh, I see. You know what, let's just yeah. There, that way we don't have to keep searching for it. This config item identity, yes, so we don't need that. Oh, you know what, we can't call that. Oh, geez, wait, hold on. No, let's just leave it. Because it seems like we're taking kind of replacing this declaration right here. Only if it's null or boolean. If it's not, then we call this the identity field off that config item. There's still a way to shorten it up though. And then we'll just call it if we can save resources at all, then it's best to do that. So especially this website that I'm working on right now, it's very resource intensive, using constant JavaScript to constantly refresh things. So it's any little piece that we can save. Okay, the rest of it looks good. Yeah, okay. Pretty happy with that. So let's move on. Now we got to go back to the library that actually called that. And basically what it's trying to do here is it will try to pull the user information based on the identity and the password. Actually, just the identity that the user provided us. If it doesn't find a user by that identity, then we have to throw a general error here. Invalid. Okay, so let's create that on the language file. Oh, jeez. That was really, I'm sure when I go over this video, that's going to sound really dramatic. See, I don't want to, oh, I know what I'm going to do. No. Let's find out what I named it the other time. Oh, you know what? Crap. I didn't save it, did I? Oh, yeah, I did. Good. There we go. We don't recognize your account or password. I like that. Let's put that in here. Okay. So now we got to make sure that the password actually matches. And we are calling the check password function of the user model. So guess what? Oh, crap. I thought we had it. Well, we have one that's called check password underscore. And you know what? I think that's an entirely different function. Yes, it is. So guess what? We got to go fishing. The old model. Actually, go back to the library. Let's do it this way. There we go. Check password. So we need to copy this. Put it over in the new one. Where are we going to put it? Let's see. Put it right here. And now we check it. This basically just makes sure that the parameters here are correct. So here's actually what happens. We pull the password from the database. So in this case, here's the password. Of course, it's encrypted. I wouldn't show you it otherwise. We pull that string right here, the encrypted password string, and we that's interesting. Well, we're going to have to do some detective work, as always. I don't understand what's going on right here. This was a function carried over from the default content management system. I haven't really had much in the way of intervention here. I don't really understand what's going on. This function takes a password and validates it against an entry in the user's table. Yeah, that doesn't help. uh, I might have to go back and look at some older versions here. Yeah, let's do that. It's going to require me opening up an older website. Okay. Oh, geez, that's why. It's like, man, that looks really familiar. There's a glitch in this program where this is where it gets boring for you guys anyhow. For me, it's kind of, well, it's boring, but kind of focused. we need to compare this to this. Wrong one. There we go. Well, it's certainly, I mean, it all checks. It's pretty similar to the original. I just don't quite understand. That's kind of irritating. See, that doesn't even have a function called check password. This one does. This one does not. So that tells me that I eventually at some point I broke it free and put it in here as its own method, which means it's somewhere included. Let's look at the login. Here it is. So password equals hash password db user ID, which in this case over here it's an array. Over here it's an object because we just pulled it from the database, but over here it's an array. Password. If user password is entirely equal to the password, then we set the login. Which in this case we're just returning that, so that would equal to true. So we called this. Jeez. Was it the login? Yes, it was. Okay. If the password doesn't check, you know, this is really interesting because I'm constant. I really should go to bed. You take one foot in the water and you end up going for a deep sea dive. It's calling for this user. We assigned this user back here, but we're calling the get user by identity. And the problem with pulling in a model function is that it normally returns an object. And we're treating it as an array. So that could be a problem. Let's look for return. Okay. So we're setting the arguments for the SQL query right here. So we're saying where identity field is equal to that, limit 1, but we don't actually do the query here. We're just setting it up. Setting up the database query. This is all outdated, that's why it's commented out. And then we go to the get users function, which is not included in the new model. What's more, We're actually calling for an object. So I believe this is a function. Let me look at something here. What's that called? Result object. That's actually not in there. I am a little bit lost. Let's see what this brings back. Get users means we got to bring in the old one. And we got to copy the get users function. Oh, geez, guys, I'm getting kind of tired. It's officially 1:20. What does get users actually do other than get users? Well, you know what? I don't have time to nitpick through this right now, so we're just going to copy the entire thing, send it over to the new one, and it's going to be under here. Now we got to make sure everything aligns to the new model. I think we're like three functions deep now in transferring over. What does that do? I don't know. What I just did was, like I said, I'm using this new website that I'm creating as a template for all my future websites. And I'm going to be basically copying and pasting features that I want to have installed. In this case, this field right here, CID, this is a field specific to the website that I'm creating. So it's not going to be in every single future template that I create. So I'm making a little note here to, if I'm noting that this is indeed site specific and that if I'm going to be using this for a future template, I need to remove that. And I think I do have all the applicable profile fields. Let's just make sure. I think my host is telling me it's time to go to bed. So we got display name, first, last, date of birth, and pick. Display name, first, last, date of birth, which is covered in streams, and pick. User ID, oh yeah, that's okay. So So I don't have the tables parameter property defined, so we're going to have to do something here. What we're going to do is we are going to just put it directly in here. I think it's called groups, right? Yes, it is. Okay. I mean, I could just simply just put a tables property in this model, but I don't want to do that. The whole goal of transferring everything over to these new files in this new template is the fact that it's more modern and more efficient. That's a thought anyhow, the goal. Oh, jeez. Okay. Oh, crap. There we go. So all this here is just basically constructing the actual MySQL query, and we're also joining the profiles table on and the groups table on. Guys, I'm seriously tired. I think this is going to be the last one of the night. Oh, I can't. No, I got to finish this out. I'm like 3 deep right now. Oh, jeez. Oh, God. Oh, God. Oh. Okay. The name of this table is MWS underscore permissions. Okay. Found a new method. We gotta. So now we're 4 deep. Guys, it's going to give me a headache. Oh God, it's going to give me a headache. Uh, you guys are going to listen to this, watch this video, and critique me for whining. All right, we got a problem. I got to yet go and get another function over here. Copy and paste it. Where are we going to put it? I don't know. Somewhere with groups. Let's put it down here. Oh, actually, it's not groups. It's permissions. Well, okay then. Well, it actually is kind of groups. Let's go with groups. God. Oh. Yes, it's funny. Okay. What did we leave off on? Get users, right? Yeah. There we go. There's my highlighter. Okay, so when we call the get users function, we are returning rows. Rows is just the result of the query. It's not the actual rows. It will be an array of objects whenever you call the result. Okay, so now we know what that returns. Actually, it says it returns an object. Oh yeah, it is an object. Yeah, it's a result object. Okay, so it's a result object which contains an array of all the objects. So that makes sense if you're following along. Where do we leave off? Good God. We're like 4 or 5 deep. I don't even know now. Let's get user by identity. Okay, so here's where we left off. User is, in fact, an result. No. It's a query object which contains an array. Actually, it's a query object whose method result contains an array of objects. Wow. That's kind of difficult. So I still don't understand. I don't understand what the heck that is. I don't get it. Maybe it's a core code igniter function. We're going to find out. Hey, guess what? That's what it is. And I don't think we need it, because it says that this is an alias of result. So we're just going to use result. So now this would actually be the array of objects, of row objects. Now we are saving the first returned row, which would be the user we want. Think limit 1, which I think we set up here. Yep. All right, so then we return and that, my friends, is get user by identity. That was horrible. That was a lot. What did I say? Something about being this being an easy process for the login? God. Oh, that was pretty bad. That's pretty painful. Pretty painful. Okay. So, back to the login function. If we don't have a user based on that identity, then we say this, which I think we already set, didn't we? Yes, we did. Password. God, I think that's what we were actually on. See what I mean? Check. That's right. We don't. Oh, guys. Oh, oh. I think it's going to be time to go to bed after this one. Okay. I don't even know how long this video is going to be, but check password. We know that works because we verified it with this. Good, 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 good. Oh, we are bringing in an invalid password error. Okay. Invalid password. Actually, no, we're just going to use this because I don't like to, if in the event that this is somebody with malicious intent, if we tell them, hey, your password's invalid, well, then they know what to target. Whereas if we just say we don't recognize your account or password, I mean, is it going to really fend off the best hackers? No, but it's at least something. So now we see, so we check their password, that works. Otherwise we wouldn't be this far along because we returned here. So now we got to check if they're activated. Has the admin approved them? Looks like we need a setting. Registration type, make sure that we match that identically, if that's even a word, which we did. Okay. So basically what we're saying here is if they're inactive and we have the registration type set as approval, meaning everybody needs to be approved by an admin. I ain't even going to write that. It's pretty self-explanatory. Then we're going to say, hey, guess what? Your account is awaiting approval. Awaiting approval. Can't we call it something better? Let's call it pending activation. Your account is did I call it admin activation somewhere around here? Awaiting admin activation, that's what it is. Okay. Your account is awaiting admin activation. Otherwise, for some reason, it's just not activated. Your account is not activated. Please contact an administrator. Now we see if they're verified, if they've verified their email. And this is where check temp comes into play. Again, I'm tired. So if they're not verified, then we check to see if their temp access has expired. And as I told you before, this program gets buggy after it's been open for a while, so we need to close it and reopen it. Okay. If this deleted user is not empty, and the deleted user's ID is equal to this user's ID, then we tell them, guess what? You've been deleted. Your temporary access has expired. Sayonara. Oh, that's not authentication. Oh, yeah, it is. Oh, actually, it's more like verification. Yeah, it is. Well, let's do that. Oh, no. I had a spelling error in that one. We're going to have to go back. Your account has been removed. Your account has been deleted. Your account has been removed. There we go. You did not verify your account within the allotted. Apparently I have a typo there. Oh, whatever. Okay, so let's go back and put that in there and bookmark us because I got to go back and find that typo. And it's right there. Verification. Merca. Merca, we say verification. Okay. Now we see if they've been suspended. Oh, you know what? One thing I need to see. What happens if we are not on temporary verification setting? Oh, good. So now we see if they are suspended. We create a new datetime object. We see if this user suspended expiration. Let's see if that matches. Suspended expiration. Looks like it matches. Hey, look at that, it does. So if this user suspended expiration, if there is an expiration date on the guy's suspension, then we create a new datetime object with that expiration date. Otherwise, it's null. If it's not null, and end is less than or equal to now, end is less than or equal to now, which means now would be equal to or greater than end, which means we've passed, yeah. So this right here means that if there's an expiration to the user's suspension and it's passed, we unsuspend him. Now we got to make sure that works. Oh, we already did. Yeah. Okay. Now if he doesn't have an expiration, means they're suspended indefinitely, which means we need to come up with an error. Suspended. Can you imagine trying to log into a website and seeing that message? My guess is that if you've been suspended indefinitely, you probably know why. Otherwise, if he's not suspended indefinitely, then he's just suspended until. And we're going to fill it in with a date. Right there's your date. Oh, there's two dates, so I bet you it's this. Month, day, year, and then yeah, time. So until blah 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 at blah blah blah. Okay. Otherwise, guess what? We try the login. If this login was successful, we trigger the event that the user logged in. And if we show a login message, then we show the stupid login message. And let's change that. You've successfully logged in. Personally, I'm not a big fan of that success message on a login. I know that I logged in. You know, if I log in and I see my name up in the corner, I know that I'm logged in, obviously. So it's kind of redundant, which is why I made it an option. If we're supposed to show the login message, which if you look at the config file, it's set to false. That's something the user can change if they wanted. Why? Okay. Otherwise, if there's been a general error, there was a problem when trying to log you in. Or, let's see, the system encountered an error. I like that better. Okay. There's the login. That's done. And I should note that everything we're doing right now is just for the auth library. Just for the library. So the actual controller that calls all the library functions, we still need to work on that. That'll be tomorrow. Log out is really easy. I don't have to touch that. Oh, actually I do. Successful logout message. Ah, jeez. You have logged out of the website. I freaking hate that. Users authentication. Success. You've successfully logged out. It's like the most pointless thing. Oh, jeez. Okay. Log in and log out are complete. Let's see what else we got. So CRUD and verification and activation are all finished. This is my own notes. We need to work on the forgot password and reset password. Okay, wow, guys, that was a marathon. I think that's it for me tonight. Thanks for watching, and I hope that you weren't too bored. Peace.